Hey guys, what is going on? Draven here with another Metal Fan Reacts video. Like I mentioned in my Thursday video and in my Friday video, Saturdays and Sundays I'm going to dedicate it to Sabaton History channel. So it's going to be Sabaton History Saturdays and Sabaton History Sundays. And I want to do videos, react to their videos of songs that I've done reactions to. So I was going through the channel. They've done a lot of stuff on their history channel. So the first one I'm going to do is Attack of the Dead Men, one of my favorite Sabaton songs. So we're doing a reaction to the Attack of the Dead Men, gas warfare on the Eastern Front. So this is I believe Russia versus Germany. If it's take place in World War II, Eastern Front was Russia and Germany, and them battling for all the oil fields and stuff like that. There's a lot of battles that they're going for, but it was just back and forth, and I'm sure they'll touch base on it. So let's jump right into it. This is the Attack of the Dead Men, Sabaton history. I'm super excited. These guys go really well in depth into their histories about the lyrics of the songs and stuff like that. So I'm excited.
I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Per from Sabaton.
And this is Sabaton History.
I love this intro opening thing too. So cool.
There are a lot of legendary tales that came out of the Great War.
Yeah, and the song Attack of the Dead Men talks about one of the most legendary.
Sorry about that. That was set to 380 or 360 for some reason. Not too sure why, but we're at 1080. We're at 1080. High def, boys.
And the most legendary.
Yeah, but the strangest.
And maybe most legendary.
Strangest. Legendary for sure, but strangest also for sure.
Osowiec fortress was built in the late 19th century on a strategic hotspot near the river Biebrze in what is now Poland, but back then was the Russian Empire. It was just about 50 kilometers away from East Prussia, though, along the important railway line from Bialystok to Königsberg, which conveniently ran straight through the fortress. So it's kind of obvious why this was quite a headache for German high command in the Great War. This close to the German border,
World War I.
and effectively controlling one of the few railway lines through all the bogs and marshes in the area, the fortress had to either be taken or destroyed. Otherwise, it would prevent any advance into northern Poland. In fact, the Germans had tried to take the fortress back in September 1914 and again in February 1915, where the second attack had severely damaged much of the fortress defenses through heavy bombing. But the main defensive ring had nonetheless held long enough for the Russian counterattacks to force the attackers to break off. By the summer of 1915, though, the Kaiser's army was determined to try again. Now, August von Mackensen's Gorlice Tarnov offensive that summer had thrown much of the Russian forces on the Eastern Front off balance, and German and Austro-Hungarian forces advanced on a wide front eastwards. Seeing their chance, German high command wanted to also take Poland in a frontal attack and ordered Generalfeldmarschall Paul von Hindenburg on the offensive. Osowiec fortress was an important prize to take from the weakened Russian army. So 12 German infantry battalions, accompanied by up to 30...
It's crazy in this like World War I era, even World War II, but World War I era. Like if you look, like all these guys have like the single shot, or I forget what the rifles are called, but like the single shot rifles, or just like a 5-shot rifle. Like none of the automated weapons were even around yet. The Tommy guns were more popular. I mean, like, haven't been really popularized that much yet in the military, and so it's crazy to think that it was, even though it was, I wouldn't consider it modern warfare. It's still kind of remnants of like the old Revolutionary War, Civil War era, where it's just the more men you have, the better off you are. Now it's a little bit more tactical, where like a squadron of 12 could do a lot more damage. You know what I mean? But it's just crazy to see this just insane amount of just infantrymen just marching along. It's just so gnarly.
Heavy artillery pieces set their sights on Osowiec. The core of the Russian defenders, under General Lieutenant Berzhozovsky's command, was made up of around 500 men from the 226th Infantry Regiment Zemlyansky, supported by several hundred militia. They dug in several lines of defenses and redoubts, trying to give the German artillery as small a target as possible. But once the assault began, much of the fortress walls, barracks, and towers began to crack under the heavy German siege artillery. But artillery alone won't take the fortress. They would still need the infantry for that job, and the Russians had enough machine guns and defensive works to make that very difficult and very costly.
Forces on the hunt.
Germans, though, brought in a fairly new and extremely dangerous weapon, gas. Now, gas warfare was fairly new. In 1914, the French had used tear gas, and in early 1915, the Germans had first used poison gas at Bolimov, though that failed. Since then, however, it had had a devastating effect.
I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at. Are these white dots humans? I can't figure it out. But it's a cool picture. I just can't figure out if that's yeah, I'm not sure.
On the totally unprepared and ill-equipped Russian soldiers who died gruesome and horrible deaths in the deadly clouds of gas. Without gas masks to protect themselves, the defenders of Osowiec were expected to suffer the same fate. In the early morning of August 6th, as the winds were finally favorable, the German gas batteries opened up. A dark green smog descended upon the battered defensive works. The wave of gas crept over the Russian lines, creating a death zone. The gas used was made out of a mixture of chlorine and bromine. While the bromine acted as a respiratory irritant, the chlorine attacked the lungs, chemically burning them, right?
Jesus.
The chlorine attached itself to moisture in the air, turning it to hydrochloric acid, which then bit into the membranes and flesh of the lungs, aggressively dissolving the soft tissue. The Russian soldiers were literally choking on their own blood, as every breath they took destroyed their lungs. Unable to breathe, they died in agony, coughing out bloody lumps of their own lungs. But it was not only the lungs that suffered, as the acid attacked the soft tissues of the eyes and noses, burning them chemically as well. The soldiers burned from the inside out. Many died within the first few minutes.
That's so gnarly.
Those further away from the initial attack tried binding wet rags and urine-soaked shirts around their faces in a desperate attempt to protect themselves, but that often helped little. Everything the wave of gas came in contact with began to die. Leaves and grass turned yellow and black. It killed the insects and the animals in the woods. There was no escaping as the gas crept into every ditch and into every hole, even attaching itself to the brass of guns and shells. The defenders suffered heavy losses, and whole companies in the foremost trenches were simply wiped out. Only around 100 men in the defensive lines further back survived, still terribly burned. As the gas dissipated, the German infantry battalions formed up. While other units went to secure the railway line, it was up to these 7,000 men of the German 76th Landwehr Division to storm the main defensive lines in front of the fortress. Confident that most of the defenders had been wiped out and that the few left would be overcome with ease, the German infantry moved onwards. The first lines were indeed littered with only the dead, grotesquely deformed in their final moments of inevitable death. The end.
Nope.
Or was it? As the German troops moved onward over the shelled-out ground, they suddenly came under heavy fire. The fortress artillery opened up on them, and machine gun fire tore holes in their ranks. Further out on the flanks, the last Russian reserve companies coming up from the rear formed to counterattack the German infantry. Seeing those friendly reinforcements rush in with their bayonets attached, the 100-odd survivors in the trenches also emerged. Bayonets fixed, they stumbled like zombies out of their dugouts, crawling and limping their way into the open.
It's so crazy. The music video that they have for this, or that someone made for it, is really good. It's really creepy. When the dead men are marching again.
Complete shock stopped the German attackers dead in their tracks. Like dead men returning to life, the Russian survivors came on, heavily breathing, gasping for air through destroyed lungs, their faces scarred by chemical burns, half hidden with bloody rags. They marched on, thirsting for revenge for the terrible fate thrust upon them. Their tears were bloody, their eyes burned red. They spat blood and parts of their lungs as they advanced, croaking and coughing like the living dead. This horrible sight, as well as the unexpected counterattack, halted the Germans, and a deep panic set in.
Yep.
They hastily withdrew, soon running away in terror as the panic spread through their ranks, pushing their comrades aside, trampling over each other, stumbling over barbed wire as Russian artillery shells fell in between them. The attack of the dead men came on, accompanied by a bayonet charge of the reserves, and recaptured the lost trenches. By 11 a.m., a few hours after the deadly gas attack, the defensive lines were back in Russian control.
It's so crazy.
Germans had withdrawn back to their own starting positions. Okay, much of the battle remains shrouded in legends and mystery, and that is likely to remain so. The casualty numbers on either side are unknown, as are the German records of this battle, though it was certainly a well-deserved tactical victory of a small Russian force over a much larger German force. Strategically, it did little to preserve the Russian hold on Poland, and Osowiec fortress had to be given up weeks later as it was too damaged and the whole front had to pull back anyhow. And since, after the Russian revolutions of 1917, this war was viewed by the Soviet Union as a capitalist war and a source of shame, it was largely edited or written out in their history books. Nowadays, post-Soviet Union, however, the legend of the attack of the dead men is gaining more attention as Russia's interest in the Great War increases. And the legend is certainly a tale worth telling. That is beyond dispute.
I agree.
The whole song "Attack of the Dead Men," it was one of those like super like, okay, we're gonna do an album about World War One.
Yeah.
And when I was presenting the idea to
let's just take a moment to appreciate not his beard, because I can never get there, but his beard is amazing. But his shirt. I love that tank shirt. That is awesome.
our record label Nuclear Blast, they were like, okay, so you're gonna have a song about gas? And I was like, yeah, sure, there will be a song, such song. We didn't know exactly how we're gonna cover it, like in which area, but the story of the dead man was one of the absolutely like most legendary ones that we definitely felt that we needed to get in. And then that's the Osowiec fortress. That's where we get in the.
Have you been there?
No, I never been there, but we've received a lot of fan mails saying like, this is something you really should write a song about. So in the end we did, and we had a little bit of a special way of revealing the song to the fans, because in Russia there's this guy who is famous as Radio Tapok. He's got a very popular YouTube channel. He's a touring heavy metal musician who does cover songs of bands like Sabaton, but he translates them into Russian.
Okay.
So I asked him, would you be willing to do a song which nobody has ever heard, and do it, you translate it into Russian, and you release it before us? And he was like, that's a weird thing. I've never heard of it.
Sounds kind of cool though.
Yeah.
So
I don't know any of this. That's awesome. I'm sure you guys in the comments already know all of this, so let me know if you do, but I don't know.
Before anybody has heard the song, he heard it, he recorded it, he translated it into Russian, and he made a music video for it and put it out. I think that was
I have to check it out.
Interesting way. A lot of people said I'm crazy when I come with such a marketing idea.
But you could have sued him for millions of dollars.
Yeah, that could have been. That could have been the case. Like, hey, you stole our song.
You told me. Why would I tell you to?
But we actually gave him the song, and it was very popular, and he did a good job. And maybe we can listen to a little bit of Russian version of it.
I hope so.
That's sick.
Now,
that's so badass.
People were asking you to write lots of stuff about the First World War, and you've got, about the Red Baron and Lawrence of Arabia. Which one was the topic that most people asked you to write a song about?
About World War One.
Yeah.
And the most requests are for the Christmas truce.
Aha, okay.
Funny enough, but we didn't have a song that fitted to it, so we couldn't get it in. But second most wanted song was Attack of the Dead Men.
It's interesting because it's only.
I'll have to look it up after this video, But when he's mentioning the Christmas troops, I believe that was during World War One. That on Christmas, like the guys, both the Germans and the Allies, or it could have been the Russians and the Germans, came together on Christmas and sang songs and drank together and stuff, and like did a ceasefire for that day. I think that's what he's referring to. I know that it happened during World War One. I could have sworn it happened during World War Two in the Battle of Bastogne, but I'm not 100% on that one. I'm pretty positive it happened during World War One. That what he may be referring to that. Not 100% if he is, and if he is, let me know in the comment section. Like I really do love when you guys explain more about what's going on.
I didn't know that story before I started writing the Great War, but I'm a historian, and you think, but it's really the last few years it's become so much more. People know so much more about it. So,
and guess where I found out about it? Mainly.
Oh yeah, okay.
From you.
Yeah.
So
that's my job.
Well, we have the fans as well, but where we were looking for information about it was mainly from you.
Huh. Well, it's nice that I can change the world one person at a time, or one metal band at a time. Now, I mentioned before in the history bit that there's not a lot of specific history about this specific battle. Like there's so many things we don't know because so many of the records were destroyed or mislaid or intentionally destroyed during the Soviet Union because World War I was not a patriotic war. It was the imperialist war.
It's the problem that we often face. People say, "Oh, here is a story," and then you can't find the proper information about it. These days, it's so much easier. But going back to the beginning when we started to write about it, it was not easy for us to find information.
Sure.
I mean, people who are into history, people who are historians, they know where to search, where to find. They have the networks to find it. We stand in the beginning absolutely alone. We didn't even have the fans.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for where we stand now, where we have good contacts like you, for example, very good reference for World War One.
Like historians like Marcus and Vika and stuff. That
say
hi, guys. There you go.
Our awesome team who can help us with coming up with the information. But in the beginning, it was really difficult.
Well, you mentioned the Christmas truce, and people asked a lot during the Great War, and they still ask, they're like, well, did they try anything like that on the Eastern Front? Because the Christmas truce was on the Western Front. And they're like, yeah, how come there was nothing like that on the Eastern Front? There's a very simple reason why there wasn't on the Eastern Front.
Orthodox.
That's the truth. Some Russian soldiers did try an Easter truce in 1916. They came out of their trenches on Easter, to start the same sort of thing. And they were all shot at and taken prisoner by the Germans and the Austrians because they used a different calendar. Yeah. And it was 13 days different, so it was not Easter to the Germans.
I shouldn't laugh.
A bunch of Russians walking out of their trenches for hanging out and going, hey, come on, here's some drinks. And shot at them. I wouldn't have shot at them. Drinks are drinks.
Yeah.
Never look a free drink in the... Well, that doesn't make sense. I'll shut up now. You can edit that out.
They didn't edit it out.
Oh, yeah.
I'm having drinks.
Drinks. All right. Well, since it's drinking time, I guess it's time for us to say goodbye, Per.
Yeah, it is. And thank you for everybody for watching this episode.
Okay. That was... We're going to take another quick look at that one real quick. How'd that go unnoticed by the host? He has a bottle cap opener as a ring.
Never look a free drink in the...
Look.
Well, that doesn't make sense.
Watch.
I'll shut up now. You can edit that out. So what are you doing?
I'm having
Watch.
Drinks. All right. Well,
turns his ring around.
Time, I guess it's time for us to say goodbye, Per.
Yeah, it is. And thank you for everybody for watching this episode
of Sabaton History.
That was amazing.
Listen to me, everybody. We love the Sabaton History channel. If you do it, please share it with us. Support it on Patreon, YouTube, and any way you want. Thank you for your support. Let's do this forever.
All right. That was awesome. So thank you guys again for bearing with me. I know the Sabaton History videos are longer than like a music video. But it's fun to hear about like where they get inspirational from and stuff like that. And I'm kind of bummed they weren't able to do the Christmas Soldiers one. I wonder if they will ever go back and revisit some of them. It's good to know that they do kind of keep genres within albums. I'm curious if they'll ever do an American album, like talking about the Civil War and the American Revolution, stuff like that. Doubt it. It's that is, you know, the American in me wanting it, but it's not a popular discussion overseas. I mean, it's not. I'm sure it's not taught often in European countries. Probably not taught in England. Sorry. But either way, guys, that was an awesome video. Thank you guys again for the recommendation. Of course, all the support. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you guys subscribe to the Sabaton History channel. Well, that's going to be it for me today. I don't know if I'll be streaming today. We're dealing with a lot of the virus stuff out here in Idaho, so I'm kind of homebound. Maybe streaming later. Either way, guys, you have yourself a wonderful day and a great weekend. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.